Hello, Trojan fans, and welcome back to the Trojan Football Coaches Couch. And yes, I just changed the name of the show since last week. But I'm your host, Jody Cooney, and of course, as always, I'm joined by North Hall football head coach David Bishop. Trojans are coming off a 33-13 win at Gilmer Friday night, which extended their winning streak to 5 games and improved their overall record to 5-3 and 4-0 in Region 7 AAA play. But most importantly, Coach, congratulations on qualifying for the state playoffs for a school record 6th consecutive year.
Thank you, man. It means a lot. Friday was very emotional. Just on a personal note, I had lost my father-in-law that weekend before, and one of the things that he's always wanting to know is how's the team doing and how are the kids. And it never really hit me until after the game because I've just tried to be pretty private in what I do. And
right.
So it was extra special that night, just knowing that we were able to achieve it after starting 0-3 with a lot of people concerned about where we were going, and
right.
and I lost my father, and just being able to achieve that again was something special that night.
Right. All right, so with 3 weeks left in the season, there are 3 teams that are undefeated in the region, North Hall, Dawson County, and Cherokee Bluff. And it sets up what is effectively turned into a 3-way round-robin tournament for the region championship, starting with Dawson County and Cherokee this Friday.
Yep. It's going to be interesting. The next 3 weeks are going to be real interesting in the region because somebody's going to come out on top, but it's going to take 3 weeks to determine that. So it's going to be pretty neat.
Right, but the schedule kind of sets up. You could have known this going ahead of time, but the way the region part of the schedule is played out, bye week couldn't have come really at a better time from a coaching standpoint, could it?
Absolutely. Gives us a little bit of time to just take a breather, and then also spend a little bit of time on Cherokee Bluff, but most importantly, spend some time on looking at what we have to do individually and corporately to get better.
Right. Yeah, and you also get a scouting game with them playing each other.
That's right.
That's Friday. So, like I said, everything just kind of fell our way in that situation. Let's go back to Friday night's game. We talked about how Gilmer's a wing T team, but only their 2nd year running it under since Coach Saunders came down. One thing that really stood out to me was when you looked at the 2 teams, how vanilla the Gilmer version of the wing T was in comparison to what we're running now. In fact, a casual observer might not even recognize that 2 teams were running the same offense.
That is correct. We joked. I joked with my offensive staff the other day because really what Coach Saunders runs is what is traditional Delaware wing team. That is what they run, and we've never been that. We've been close. We've always mixed multiple offenses together. For instance, for years we were, before it became wing T, when we were in Bainbridge, we were a wishbone team. So what we did was kind of take the best of both and kind of mix them together a little bit. And we used the offensive wing T set to be our basis of our offense. But really this year we've probably run less to the traditional wing than we ever have. But it's what we do best. So that is the other thing that a lot of people don't realize is every year it takes us 2 to 3 games just to figure out what this group of kids can do better than other plays. So what plays are we going to work with? And so yeah, it's definitely, we do things a lot different.
Right, and it seemed to me as the game went on, that extra depth in our playbook really made a big difference. Of course, as our kids were seeing their offense, they started picking up their reads a lot quicker, and I'm sure he made some defensive adjustments. And Gilmer didn't really have, only being 2 years into the system, they didn't really have the depth to make big counters to what you guys were doing. But as they adjusted our offense, we just threw new wrinkles at them.
We did, and that's the thing that's been great with our staff this year. You go back to, I guess it was the last show, talking about our staff and having a group that's the same staff as last year, and it has helped us a lot, especially up in the box where they can say, hey coach, this is what they're giving us and this is what we need to be running, be thinking about this play or be thinking about that play, where for the last 4 years I'm trying to break in a new guy in the box and it takes them a year to figure it out. By the time they have it figured out, the season's over and I've got a new coach. So it's nice to have that second year in there, and we're able to drill down into the playbook and move people into different places and do things.
Yeah. Now, after Lubbock game in last year's playoff, I think it's natural for everybody, fans, opposing coaches, everything, to expect an off-tackle blast just about every time they see that Buffalo package in there. But you really hurt Gilmer this past week running sweeps out of that package.
One of the things that we did years and years ago under Coach Christmas, we had it, and it was just a short yardage package, and we really ran blast and we ran trap. When we put it in last year, we had no idea that we would be able to expand it and really put it into its own little offense. So now it's its own. We can run every one of our plays out of it now. Mm-hmm. And like you said, we were able to run some sweeps and kick with our Buffalo back, kick a corner.
Right.
And then later, when I noticed they're keying in on the Buffalo back, I was able to move him away from the sweep and run sweep and let our guard kick the corner. So a lot of different things that you can do with it, and we continue to expand. As a matter of fact, the first touchdown that Bradford Puryear had, that 60-some yard run, was a Buffalo package. It was a mixture of a play that we had in our wing tee, or our wishbone, that we just incorporated into our Buffalo package.
Right. Yeah, and Clark Howell made a lot of those big runs, and I've watched him since the early days of the junior Trojan. He's always had the ability to make big plays if he gets some open field, but the big difference I see now is he's actually able to create open field by shedding tacklers that he couldn't do when he was younger and smaller. He also can just grind out yards when there's not a big play there, which wasn't what he did when he was younger. He's really become a very complete back in this program over the years.
He's become a very complete back. As a matter of fact, in our Buffalo package, if you want to just go back, he plays tailback and he plays halfback. So I don't have to change. Last year when we did this Buffalo stuff, we had to change personnel. So we'd say Buffalo T, so I'd send in the tailback, Buffalo H, we'd send in the halfback. Well, Clark does it both.
Right.
So having him being that guy that can play inside the tackle is good because he has great vision and he can make people miss and make cuts. If you go back over here at Lumpkin, one of the touchdowns he scored was designed to go straight ahead and typically to the right. Well, he saw the ability to bend it back to the left and score a touchdown. We're running midline, and he just bent it back around the center. So he has the ability to do that. He's gotten so strong in the weight room and just enjoys the weights and enjoys all that stuff. So it makes it really tough.
Yeah, he's not quite the same physical specimen as, say, an Amani or a Dylan Wolf, but you see a lot of the same elements, don't you? I mean, he's really hard to bring down. He's got a really good vision and got just enough speed to get to really punish you when he does get loose.
That's right, and you see every aspect of it throughout the year, and that's what's been it's been neat to see his maturation process over the few years that I've had the opportunity to coach him.
Yeah. All right, we touched on the defensive side of the ball briefly, but just to recap on when Gilmer's opening drive, they went the length of the field for a TD. Kind of actually made it look a little bit easy. Ate up the entire first.
It was a little nerve-wracking.
Ate up pretty much half the first quarter doing it. We come back, match their score on Bradford's long run. Then their second drive kind of started out the same way. They start grinding the ball down the field, but we managed to turn them over on downs around the 15-yard line, I think. From that point on, they had the one big score on a long touchdown pass, but really never sustained another drive. What made the difference defensively as the game wore on?
Well, like you said earlier, this is different than what you typically see. I think since I've been head coach 7 seasons now, it's the first wing T team we faced in 7 seasons.
Right.
So that was a different beast in itself. The fits are a little bit different for our linebackers and linemen and our secondary, and if you don't fit in the right spot, it does hurt you. So early on, we were fitting too tight inside, and they were hitting stuff outside, and then we weren't getting people to fill an appropriate place on the sweeps they run, and it took a while for our kids to get the appropriate fits. And then also up front, we had to make a few little adjustments, and as our kids started to settle in, we were able to just kind of feel comfortable defending it from time to time.
Okay. Just for the benefit of everybody watching that may not be familiar with the coach speak, what exactly you mean by fit?
Okay. for instance, we're a gap sound defense. And so you get a down block. Well, your gap gets closed off in a down block. When somebody comes down, they close off the gap. So now you have to do what we call a scrape. So if I'm going into this gap and it's open, I'm going to run through that gap, and if something comes through it. Now that the gap gets closed, now I have to scrape and work a little bit wider, because now this becomes my gap. Mm-hmm. So what was happening was we were scraping and hitting in here too tight, and they were bringing the play just a little bit wider on the buck sweeps, and a couple times on our jet sweep, our outside guy who's contained was able to punch it back in. Our inside guy who's what we call a spill guy, who's supposed to force it outside, he's forcing it to the free safety, and the free safety wasn't getting where he needed to be. And it was just a little hit and miss here and there, and as our kids just felt more comfortable, they recognized what to see and how to fit.
All right. Well, Coach, I think it's time to take the fans to the North Hall Tire and Wheel film room and show them how it all happened.
All right.
Okay, one of the things that we want to discuss today a little bit is probably a little bit more of our defense versus the offense. What does it look like for us defending the wing team? First of all, this is the first time in 7 years that as a head coach that I've had to defend it. Tells you how much the game has changed. But what we want to do is kind of look at why we struggled early on. We talked about fits, and you're going to see what we're talking about. Not going to get into the overall reads, but on this first play, what we see here is what we call a down play. That is the play to the tailback or the fullback, and everybody's blocking down and they're kicking the last man on the line of scrimmage. Now, regardless of how you look at it, it's an off-tackle play for him. His read should take him, okay, to the D gap or just outside of this block. He's running what we call contained, so he's boxing and forcing everything inside. He's a spill guy, so he should be attacking everything with his inside shoulder. And he kind of fits in the wrong gap. What we also get here is our tackle who, regardless of the offense we face, he is a reader of the man on him. So if this guy pulls this way, he's going to attack the center, cross his face, and end up a gap over. If he pulls out, he's going to attack the tackle, cross his face, and end up a gap or two over. And if you'll watch it slowly, he sees him pulling. He crosses the face of the down block from the tackle, and he's ready to fit in that hole and make a tackle. He should be scraping right off of that down block. Now granted, he was going to get probably picked up by the wing, but now my tackle is going to be in great position to make the play, and he knocks him off. My force guy right here does a decent job of making it go up inside, and unfortunately the corner has to make a tackle. So it's not a big play. They do get us early on the down play, which this is, and you can see our fits are a little bit off. Like I said, this linebacker right here should be playing off tackle. This linebacker should actually be playing trap, and if you watch, he is kind of somewhat playing trap. He's on the back side of it, and he should be on the front side of it, which means he should end up over here instead of over here. Now in this set, one of the things that their number one play was power over here. And I know a lot of people get concerned that we have our quarterback and he's playing defense, but to be quite honest with you, our quarterbacks are tough kids. They're physically tough, they're mentally tough, and a lot of times our quarterbacks are either playing free safety or strong safety because they're some of the better athletes on the team. just so you can kind of see, he's in charge right now of taking kick out. So they're gonna run power over here, and you watch, he does a good job of stopping the surge of the fullback, slows everything down for our linemen to get there and our linebackers. If you watch, his fits a little bit better right here. He's coming off tackle, and he fits through, and he's on top of the play. And if you watch what we were talking about, here is my left tackle. He reads the guard pulls, he attacks the center, and he's getting chopped. He crosses the center's face, comes down the line of scrimmage, and if that ball were to carry out, he's there to actually make a tackle. Okay, so he does a pretty good job right there. But I wanted you to see kind of how this is all going, and we've got a stunt off the backside over here. So you've got him going inside, and him going outside, okay? And they run the ball the other way, and if you look, my backside end, I believe is who it is, number 49 right here, Kevin Rochester, he's running a slant inside, and he comes down the line and makes the tackle. And he makes that tackle because our outside linebacker up here, who is also is our quarterback, boxes that edge pretty well. They don't have any room to wrap up, and he's able to make the play on the backside. So that's kind of a good play early. Just wanted to share that with you so you could see how we utilize our kids. We're not going to be scared of kids getting injured. We're going to play football, how we've always played football, which is hard and physical. Now, this next play is trap, I believe, and what we have to do is understand the concepts of trap. If you remember, we talked about he reads the man on him. If he pulls, he should get his hand, or if he down blocks, he should get his hands on him, squeeze him, and be ready to play this guy coming back and spill it, which means the ball should bounce outside of him. He's reading this guy who's pulling, so he should attack the center and cross his face, and there should not be a big play. And you can see him, he shucks him, and he just comes off because he doesn't really do his job by getting his hands on the guard, who now also gets in on the linebacker. Now the problem with that is my linebacker's not, like we said, keys and reads and fills are not good. He should be reading, and I'm going to tell you what he reads, but he should be reading and should end up right here. And for some reason, he ends up back door, which opens us up. Now you might be saying, what's that linebacker up top reading? Right now, we have one guy that plays trap and one guy that plays buck sweep. And he's the trap guy, he's the buck sweep guy. And you can see him, he makes his key, and he's running off tackle fast. So if they were running power or buck sweep up top, because all the action is the same, he's right there to blow it up. And our fits between these two guys are tremendous right now. All right, so because the fits inside aren't very good, you know, they break off about a 10-yard run on trap. Now, the one play that they were their best at is the counter or the tag play, and for them it's counter because they'll pull tackle and tight end or pull guard and tight end. And so, again, when we look at our concepts here, this guy right here is playing the buck sweep or the power to this side with his eyes here. When he sees them pull away, he'll redirect flat, get through all the traffic, and play back. He's playing trap, he's playing counter boot away. So his guy goes away, eyes come across, he sees, and he's able to fill. So again, just watch this play side linebacker right here play the counter. He goes to play buck sweep, he sees pulling bodies, redirects flat down the line of scrimmage, fits in the hole. He's unaccounted for in that situation, makes a great play. Our outside linebacker, he's reading away. He sees flow too. He's squeezing and boxing and forcing it back inside, and he's there to pick up with the inside linebacker that doesn't pick up. So that's a great way to play tag. We shut their tag down pretty much all night. Now again, power. Early on, we struggled at times. See how poorly our fit is right here by our inside linebacker. He's in the wrong gap. If you'll watch Clark up here, he should be boxing, which means he takes the play on with his inside shoulder, and instead he takes it on with his outside shoulder, which turns it into what we call a spill technique. When you box it, you're forcing it inside. When you spill it, you force it outside. In this situation, he forced it outside. We have nobody to force it to because he's the forced defender. And makes it really tough. It's a big play for them right there. And free safety needs to come and run a little bit harder in the alley. But we start getting that stuff fixed as the game goes on. Now, this right here is the next series, just to see how different we play it. Watch Clark come in and box this guy and the lick he puts on him. I mean, he snaps his head back, knocks him down in the ground. He's not a threat anymore. And when you play that physical and they're going to run that play 15 times, 20 times a game, he doesn't want any part of that anymore. So that's just a great play, great box setup. Our defensive end does a great job by board drilling this guy, not letting him go, forcing the wingback to have to play two guys on one, which also allows our linebacker free. So he's got nobody that can get to him except for the pulling guard. And right now that linebacker is not doing a very good job. He should be screaming downhill. So we bring another linebacker in next series, and his reads were so much more crisp. So see how we've gotten better in one series on how to play the power. And here we go playing the trap. We've got two different tackles in. And the rule for this guy, I'm just telling you, they're going to run trap over here. He pulls. If he can't cross his face, his job is to attack the center and try to drive him back in the hole. His rule is squeeze, get hands on, and he's playing trap. He's playing buck sweep. You watch that linebacker, boom, he's down in there hard. He sees it's trap. Again, I'd like to see our tackle right here get hands on better to keep that guy off, but he squeezes hard, and because he squeezes hard, watch him take on, I don't know if you can see it, watch him take on the trap block, and he does what we call a spill technique. So he wrong arms it, he takes his outside shoulder and comes underneath.
And once again, we want to thank North Hall Tire and Wheel for bringing you those highlights. Coach, with this show, we kind of want to pull back the curtain on the program for the fans to see inside. And from where I sit, the foundation of it all is the culture that's been built and maintained over the past 20 years. It may take a few episodes, but I kind of like to unpack that a little bit for everyone. So start out with this episode. Let's kind of go back to the beginning. What were the problems with the program when you and Coach Christmas arrived back in 2001? Briefly.
Yeah, brief. It could take a long time, but just to give you an idea where things were, I mean, not being from here and not really understanding everything, we knew that they had been through an 0-10 season and the school didn't have much success. So we felt like no matter where we've been, it's all about little things. Mm-hmm. Because little things create big things. And I remember our first practice. It was the strangest thing I've ever experienced in my life. We'd flown in to have spring practice. And I remember we had it out here on the field, and there's people everywhere watching. And we're like, okay, this is unusual. We don't normally have people at practice, but we'll deal with it. And that practice was basics. And when I say basics, I mean really basic. How to get in a huddle, how to break a huddle, how to line up, and your stance. That was it. We didn't get into X's and O's. We got into basics, huddle drill. And I remember after that first practice, the number of kids that were like, Coach, that was amazing. That was the best practice we've ever had in our entire life. And I'm going, this is really weird. And then parents came out of the stands and were down the field, and that was awkward to begin with. And then it was like, Coach, that was like unbelievable. And we were like, yeah, okay. So it gave us a little bit of, okay, yeah, we're starting from the bottom, and we needed to. And one of the things that we've always believed in too, when we started this years before even coming to North Hall, was our Men of Summer program. everybody had a summer program, so, but ours was different. And people didn't want to believe that. They all made fun of us when we got here. Oh, North Hall thinks they've reinvented something. They're doing summer programs. But most people's summer program at that time was, we're going to open the weight room. You'll have one coach in there, and he's going to be here for, 2-hour slot, or he might be there for a 3-hour slot. And then coaches rotated throughout days of the week, and there wasn't really anything overly organized. And what we did, and we started it really in Bainbridge, was every coach was there every day, and we were going to lift together, we were going to run together, and we were going to do football together. And so really it was a 3-hour practice, essentially. And when we brought that over here, again, people in the area were like, oh, no, they've done something neat. But I believe after watching it, it started to change a lot of the local culture, because now a lot of these people that kind of ridiculed us started to come to us and ask, guys, you mind sit down and show us what you're doing? And now you started to look, it was now all of a sudden they had the War Eagle Men of Summer. And they started the posters, and they had the same, very similar plan. And then you had the Knights of the Round Table over at Johnson, and they were doing it. So when it comes to that, I think we've actually changed a little bit of not just our culture, but some of the culture that was in Hall County too, which was kind of neat.
Yeah. From what I understand, it wasn't, there was a lot of different aspects to the things you had to change. I mean, it really spanned all aspects of the program. You had issues with the facilities that were not exactly top notch at the time. And there was the attitude of the students, not just the players, but the overall student body, and even the community. You touched on the player development part of that you built on. I mean, it was kind of an across the board overhaul that had to happen, wasn't it?
It was, and I think so many years of just not having ultimate success, there was not a big belief in anything about the program. There was more of a sit back and just be happy. Mm-hmm. And I think you and I talked maybe just off the air last time. I remember one of the former coaches who I think was now at the middle school, I'm trying to remember where he was at, and he said, Coach, listen, I know you guys want to win, but you're never going to win here. This is a great place to live. If you get 2 to 3 wins a year, you need to be happy and enjoy them, because you're never going to win more than that. And if you win 5, that's just like winning the Super Bowl. And it was kind of like, that's not what we're here for. We're here for success. And then we had our first year, we had shirts, and our motto was, what if? Mm-hmm. And we were at the IGA up in Claremont, and I remember Coach Jones and I walked in, and he had his what if shirt on, and nobody knew us, and this girl says, what does that mean? And if you know Coach Jones, he was a very vocal guy, and he says, what if? You don't want to miss it. And she's like, okay, well, what does that mean? She says, what if we start to win? What if we become a really good football program? And the girl chuckled. She said, and what if you sound just like every other coach that's come in here before? Not just changing your kids' culture and mindset, it was changing parents' mindset, it was changing community mindset.
Yeah. But it wasn't all negative.
Oh, no.
What were some of the positives you saw in the program, the school, and community that you were able to build on in your year?
I think everybody's desire was for success, mm-hmm. But I don't think anybody really had a good plan. And that was the one thing that, being with Coach Christmas, I saw that. There's a little cartoon called Bob the Builder. Okay. And that was a joke, but that's what I ended up calling him, because that was what he was good at. It's not that he wasn't a good football coach, but he was a good builder. Right. He was able to get communities together to have a common goal and common thread to kind of move towards putting things together. When I was in Virginia, before I got on his staff, I lived across the street from Jefferson Forest High School. And I remember them building this first field house. And it was nothing like the one we have now, but at that point in that area, it was the Taj Mahal. And I remember thinking, wow, look at what this is going on, and you know, the pride in that community for that. So he was able to instill a lot of those same things, because there was that desire, and he was able to just get people together, and we started to build it, and then it turned into, it's just North Hall. And people started to buy in and started to believe, and then, you know, wanted to become a part of what we have.
Right, and I remember that it, you know, when that became a big thing, and that was, you know, being part of the community, you kind of knew the community was buying in, because that was largely our way of thumbing our nose at all the naysayers around us that had always treated North Hall, especially athletically, as, oh, it's just North Hall.
Yeah.
It was, and we changed it to, oh, yeah, it's just North Hall.
Yeah.
It became a sarcastic slap back at them.
That's right.
At that point. So as you mentioned, when y'all came in, the Trojans had been 0-10 in 2000, and quite frankly, really hadn't even come close to a win that year. And then you start 2001 with 9 more consecutive losses, which we extended the program losing streak to 26 games. All right. Was that discouraging, or was it pretty much what you expected, or some of both?
I think it was a little bit of everything, to be quite honest with you. When we go back to that spring practice, I realized how bad we were in a lot of aspects. I was a receiver coach, and you know, was doing extremely basic ball drills, and I remember, you know, throwing balls and balls bouncing off kids' heads, helmets. And I remember looking at coach afterwards going, we got a long way to go. So, you know, you look at where we were athletically, and then you take the losing streak, and then you take a group of seniors who have had no success, and they were being ridiculed, and they were continued. But the one thing that I remember was Coach Christmas always looking at us and saying, guys, this is not time to yell at the kids. This is time to love on your kids, be demanding, and let's point out the successes we had every week. So film session was not a gripe session, it was more of a praise session where, hey, let's look at what we did better this week than what we did last week. And what you saw was the gap from week to week, from opponent to opponent, getting closer and closer. Right. And we stressed that, and what our kids saw was the ability to close the gap on people that they were getting blown away by. And we got blessed, and I know this is a blessing and a curse, was 9/11 happened that year, and that game was canceled, and it was pushed back. Right. And that's where I believe that game against Madison County changed everything.
Yeah, we'll come to that in just a second. I'm building up to that. But before we get there, you know, one thing I did notice sitting in the stands that year, you know, there were games we were getting beat by 20 points plus at halftime to a clearly superior team. But one thing I noticed, every single game, the kids in that team came out of the locker room at halftime and played with just as much energy and just as much focus as if they were in a tight game in the playoffs. You know, we'd always have, it seems like, just a little bit of a surge there at the beginning of the third quarter, you know, against those better teams that got pushed back pretty quickly. But, you know, there was always something, you know, in their body language and their effort level and everything coming out of halftime. And from my seat in the stands, to me, that was my first indication that, okay, something is different now.
Our motto at halftime during those first years was, what's the score of the ball game? And we'd always say 0-0. So we had to refocus our kids in trying to just put what happened negative away and get them to come back out in the second half with the same amount of energy and the same amount of passion. And we've kind of, I hate to say that we've gotten away from it, because what we've had to do is look at things a little bit differently now, because we're not in that same situation. But that was how we came out. So a lot of times we'd say right before we'd go out, what's the score of the ball game? 0-0. What's the score of the ball game? 0-0. And at that point it was just as an attempt. And then when we got to the point where we were winning, we had to learn how to win in closeout games. Right. So then it became, what's the score of the ball game? 0-0. So it hadn't changed. It was just the mindset as it started to change. We needed to have the same energy and effort in the second half, whether we were now winning or losing.
Right. All right. And then we get to game 10, like I said, which obviously had been postponed, and the payoff finally happened. Madison County game here at home. Has there ever been a more jubilant finish to a 1-9 season?
I don't think so. That was amazing. I remember the seniors crying and parents crying, and you thought we'd won the Super Bowl. I mean, and we'd never experienced this too, because it was the first time it ever happened. But the flooding of the field with the community, and then at that point it became, hey, when we win or lose, this field gets flooded now. So it was just something neat that I thought, and it may have happened before that, but we never saw it because we weren't here then.
Yeah, I don't recall it happening. I was here that night. I was one, and I think the mood in the stands was, oh my gosh, we don't want to let go of this.
Yeah.
And so it was just a community's way of hanging on and savoring it just for a few extra moments. And you know, I'm talking about that win truly did set the stage for the years that followed. You know, it provided, you know, hope and momentum, but I think one of the most important things it provided, it did provide some validation of what you and Bob and the rest of the staff back then were doing, and even to a larger extent what Harold Daniels and Gary Brown were trying to accomplish with the athletic program as a whole.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and I think what I've learned through, I guess, 28, 29 years of coaching is that if you can change the culture in the football program, a lot of times you change the culture in the whole school.
Right.
And like I said, I don't know what things look like before, but you know, Georgia has the Georgia Athletic Directors Cup.
Right.
And one of the things that I've started to see is a trend that North Hall, regardless of classification, now when you take all the sports as a whole, we're top 10 every year in our classification.
Right.
And sometimes, a lot of times, we're top 5.
Yes.
So when you take all of the sports and put it together, now we've got this really awesome program as a school, one of the tops in the state. And usually the only teams that are above us are privates and cities.
Yes.
So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it really is. So, well, we'll pick up right here next time and next time I kind of want to dig into the community involvement aspect of the culture, because I know that's a huge part. But as always, Coach, thanks for the time. And that's going to wrap up this episode of the Trojan Football Coaches Couch. Of course, the Trojans have an off week this Friday, and so next week's show we'll continue our discussions about the culture of the program, and we'll preview the Cherokee Bluff game. And as always, if you have questions you'd like me to pose to Coach Bishop, post them in the comments, and we'll see about including some of them in the show. So thanks for tuning in once again, and go Trojans.
Go Trojans.